General insurance. When we start this section, you're going to realize that, wow, there's a lot of definitions. There really is. Every industry has their terminology, so you want to be familiar with it, you want to be comfortable with it, so that you can answer questions, of course, correctly. There's also concepts, a lot of theory and concepts. I will tell you, a lot of what you're studying and will be studying is based on contract law. The reason is all policies of insurance, regardless of what kind of insurance it is, they all follow contract law. So that's why sometimes the verbiage may feel a little convoluted or awkward. It's because it is actually legal language that is used because insurance policies are contracts. Okay, so let's get started on the very first, simplest definition. What is insurance? Any kind of insurance. Insurance is simply the transfer of risk. You as an individual, if you don't buy an insurance policy of some type, you are making yourself solely responsible for managing and handling the burden of a large cost. It can be very, very nerve-wracking. So that's why many people buy insurance. It's to transfer some of that risk to the insurance company who insures large numbers of people, and that way they can offer you a competitive, price on your insurance. But the simple, straightforward definition for what insurance is or does is it is the transfer of risk from an individual to the insurance company. You pay them a premium, and they are contractually obligated to pay a claim as long as that policy is in good order. Types of risk. This is oftentimes a test question, and that's what insurance is all about. It's all about risk, right? So there's two kinds of risk, actually. There's pure risk and there's speculative risk. Pure risk is the only kind of risk that can be insured. It means that you only have a chance of loss. Whereas speculative risk, you could have a loss or you could have a big gain. Think of going to Las Vegas and gambling. That's speculative risk. You could win big, right? Or you could lose everything you came with. So that's speculative risk. You can never insure speculative risk, only pure risk. Make sure you know the two. Let's talk about the different types of hazards. First of all, what is a hazard? A hazard in general is something that increases your possibility of having a loss. So the first type of hazard is a physical hazard. For example, you've been smoking since you were 14 years old. You've been putting yourself at more risk because of smoking. You can have health problems, you could shorten your life, all of those kinds of things. And that's something physical that you've done, right? So that is a physical hazard. Another type of a hazard is called a moral hazard, M-O-R-A-L. Pay attention to the spelling. A moral hazard is really related to an individual's moral or ethical code. Did they lie on the application? That would be an indication that there's a moral hazard here, and it could put the insurance company in an awkward position, right? So you always want to be careful that people are being honest when they are taking out an application, or they might be presenting a moral hazard, M-O-R-A-L. Another example of a hazard is a morale hazard. Again, watch the spelling, M-O-R-A-L-E. There's a difference between moral and morale. And in the stress of the exam, you might read one word for the other. So slow down, read carefully. We're going to talk here about a morale hazard. Morale hazard is more along the lines of a mindset. A person is just of the nature that they know they're supposed to take care of themselves, not take extra risks like drinking and driving. That increases their chance of having a loss, right? But they don't care. I've got insurance. I can do anything I want. You can be reckless. You can make poor choices. Oh, because the insurance company's there. They'll pay the claim if something happens. That is a good example of a morale hazard. So remember, you've got three kinds: physical, moral, and morale. The relationship of a peril to a loss. First of all, what is a peril? Peril is described or defined as the cause of a loss. It's the reason that you lost something. For example, life insurance, the cause of the loss is death, right? On, say, a medical expense plan, it could be sickness or accident. That is the peril, the cause of a loss to you. Okay, so that's what a peril is. There is a progression here and how it all connects together. We start along this progression with hazards. Remember, hazards are conditions that cause you to have some kind of a loss. And a loss is caused by a specific peril, such as death is a cause of you losing your life, right? You died, you lost your life. Now, what does a loss do? So loss is defined as a reduction in value. You pass away, the value of your life is totally reduced to zero, correct? So it would be the basis for a claim. You pass away, your named beneficiary on your life insurance policy will file a death claim with the insurance company to notify them that you have passed away. That's the process that we go through. The insurance company receives that claim, they process it, and because you, the insured who passed away, had prepared for this kind of event, you have transferred some of the risk of you dying prematurely to the insurance company, and now they're going to turn around and pay that death benefit to the named beneficiary of your life insurance policy. That's the flow of how this works.
Peril. The causes of loss insured against in an insurance policy come in two forms. We have property, which is the loss of physical property or of its income-producing abilities. Property is going to be your personal things. It could be your house or your car. It could be the things inside of your home. So when we say property, we're really talking about our stuff, and we would make a claim to the insurance company for our things, which would be a property claim. When we talk about casualty, which is the loss and or damage to property and resulting liabilities, we're talking about what we have done to someone else, and we are liable for those things, and the insurance company needs to pay out for those things. So if I were to get into a car accident and I hit someone else, I have damaged their car and I have sent them to the hospital, I am responsible for that. I am liable for that. So property is my car, my personal belongings that I would make a claim for. A casualty claim would be someone else's car, someone else's body that I am liable for to pay for. Loss. The reduction in value, destruction, or disappearance of property or person insured in a policy, or the reduction or destruction against due to a peril insured against. When we're talking about loss for an insurance claim, it's the thing that we have to put money towards to fix. So the loss would be, I have crashed my car and I need to pay to get it fixed. The loss would be the money that I have to spend to fix it. Or the loss would be the repairs. I have to pay for the repairs for my kitchen to be taken care of. So loss is truly missing the value, the reduction in value, the money that I need to spend to fix that item. That would be known as the loss for insurance. Indemnity. Indemnity is the true purpose of insurance. If we have some sort of situation, an accident, our house burning down, we want to be restored to where we were before the accident occurred. So if I crash my car, I want to use insurance to get me back to being a person who has a drivable car. That is what indemnity is. So we usually say that indemnity is reimbursement. It's the key principle in all insurance contracts. It means the insured can only collect to the extent of their financial loss, and insureds cannot gain financially after a loss. So when I make a claim to fix my car, the goal is to fix my car to where it was right before the accident. I'm not to profit off of them fixing my car. I'm not to make a gain after they fix my car. I'm just supposed to be a person who had a drivable car before the accident, and indemnity means I'm going to be a person with a drivable car after the accident. Oftentimes in homeowners insurance claims, people may have a large amount of coverage on their homes, and when the house burns down, the insurance company will rebuild that house. If the amount of coverage that they had on their policy is more than what they needed to build the house, that extra amount of money is not going to be spent. The insurance company is only going to spend what is necessary to rebuild the house up to the policy limits. If they rebuild the house and it's less than what they had on their policy, that's all that's going to be spent, because no one should be profiting off of insurance. Insurance just wants to indemnify you, to bring you back to where you were before the accident occurred.
Handling risk. There are a number of ways that individuals can handle risk. So let's talk about those. The first one is avoidance. For example, you are afraid that you might die in a car accident, so you avoid learning how to drive. You don't want to drive a car. You're afraid that it's going to happen to you. So you avoid that risk totally by not ever driving a car yourself. So you could never be responsible for having an accident. That's avoiding it. Another form of handling risk is retention. Retention is another way of saying self-insuring, meaning you do not have insurance, you don't buy any kind of coverage, and you shoulder the burden of all of that risk yourself. You don't take out insurance and transfer risk to the insurance company. You're responsible yourself. That is retention or self-insuring. Another way of handling risk is by sharing. Sharing is similar to transferring, but a lot of it has to do with how an insurance company is actually structured. So some members of certain types of insurance providers, people who have policies with certain kinds of insurance providers, they're said to share in the risk of the group. It's just kind of more terminology than anyway, but just be aware that sharing is a little different from transferring, okay? The next way to handle risk is reduction. Think of it this way. You can reduce your risk. Let's say you're a smoker and you stop smoking. You're reducing your health risks, right? You're overweight, so you go on a diet program. You start exercising, things like that. You're reducing the exposure to the different risks that are out there. That is a choice. You can do that. You can improve your situation. Okay? That's reducing or reduction of risk. The last choice for handling risk is to transfer it. That's what you do with insurance. You transfer the risk or burden of financial loss, for example, to the insurance company, so you don't have to shoulder it all yourself. That's the great definition, a simple definition for all insurance. You are transferring the risk from the insured to the insurance company. You pay them a premium, and the insurance company is contractually obligated to pay a claim as long as the policy is in good order. There are 5 different elements that make up an insurable risk. So we're going to talk about those right now. The first one, risk has to be due to chance, meaning it's accidental. It's not premeditated. It's not intended or intentional. It has to be random. It has to be by chance, okay? To be an insurable risk, the risk has to be definite and measurable, as well as statistically predictable. That is what actuaries do on behalf of the insurance company. They look at a proposed insured and all the information they provide. They do statistically compare that person to all the other risks that they currently cover. Does the person fit within the company parameters? And can they statistically prove that this person should have this kind of premium based on the risks that they represent? There is a method to all of this for ascertaining the proper risk that any one individual presents to an insurance company. Another element of insurable risk is that the risk can't be catastrophic. Of course, what insurance company would want to insure a situation, a person that presents so much risk that the insurance company could be put at risk for becoming overextended if they have a huge catastrophic claim to pay. So again, that's something that is taken into consideration. Remember, insurance companies are businesses and they need to be profitable as well, and they want to make sure that the risks that they're accepting are appropriate for the company and not going to present a catastrophic claim at some point in the future. Another element of insurable risk is that the risk has to be randomly selected. Again, it cannot be intentional. It can't be premeditated. It's going to randomly hit someone sometime, perhaps in the group, right? So random is a key word there. And they always want a large loss exposure, which is what you as an individual gain by taking out insurance with an insurance company that covers a large number of people. They work off of the law of large numbers. The larger the group, the more accurately the actuaries can statistically figure out the kinds of losses this person or risk presents to the company. So again, randomly selected and a large loss exposure. Adverse selection. You hear this term all the time when you're talking about insurance. What does it mean? It's insuring risks that are more prone to having claims than other people. Insurers always have to try to protect themselves from adverse risk selection. And how they do that is they are underwriting a person and they realize that this person has a lot of risk factors, multiple things. They could, for example, say, we will cover you for everything except this one really dangerous thing that you do. Or we're going to charge you more premium because you present a higher risk, so we have to increase our rate for you to mitigate some of the possibility of that claim that we feel is probably more likely to happen with someone who presents more risk than someone who doesn't. That's adverse selection. The law of large numbers. Insurance, remember, is the spreading of risk or transferring of risk, to the insurance company. The insurance company has a large pool of people that they cover. That's the law of large numbers. So that way, the actuaries, who are statisticians, they can crunch the numbers for the insurance company using a large sample. If you've ever taken stats, you know that the larger your numbers that you're working with, the more accurate your statistics will end up being. That's why the insurance company likes to work with large groups of numbers of people with similar risk. That's the law of large numbers. The larger the number of people with similar loss exposures, the more predictable the risk becomes, and the insurance company gets more comfortable with insuring that particular person. The law of large numbers. Types of insurers. Now remember, the word insurers means insurance companies. There's different ownerships. You have stock insurance companies and mutual insurance companies. Stock insurance companies issue what are called non-participating policies. They are owned by the stockholders. And when a stock insurance company declares a dividend, you have to own shares of stock in the company to get that dividend, not a policy. Now with mutual insurance companies, they issue what are called participating policies. Those are owned by the policy owners. They pay dividends, and the dividends are considered to be unused premium. Types of insurers as it relates to their authority. An admitted or authorized insurance provider or insurance company, they receive what is called a certificate of authority from the state. That allows them to do insurance business in that particular state. Non-admitted or unauthorized insurance company does not have that certificate of authority, which means they're prohibited from transacting any business of insurance in that particular state. Let's talk about some different types of insurers or insurance companies. It relates to their domicile, where their home offices are located. You're considered to be a domestic insurer if your home office is located in this state. You're considered to be a foreign insurer if your home office is in some other state. And You're also then known as an alien insurer if your home office is in another country, like, say, Canada or England. The law of agency. First of all, agents represent the insurer, the insurance company. Knowledge of the agent is considered to be the knowledge of the insurer. The insurer is responsible for the agent's actions. You represent that insurance company. And a payment to the agent is considered to be a payment to the insurer, the insurance company. An agent has different types of authority. The first one is express authority. Whenever you see the word express, it means written. Think of your contract with the insurance company. Implied. Implied authority means it's not written down, but people assume you have the authority. For example, you sit down with a client and you take an application with them. They consider you have the authority to do that. And then there's apparent or perceived authority based on the principles, actions, or words. Again, customers will come to you and ask you questions about things, maybe things that you really don't have the authority to answer, but they think that apparently you do because you represent the company. You have to be careful to not overstep your bounds with apparent authority. What makes up a legal contract? First of all, you actually have the agreement. The offer is the application completed by the proposed insured. The acceptance is by the insurance company when they issue the policy. Then you have consideration. The applicant's consideration is the representations or answers that they put on the application, and then also the premium check. The insurer pays claims as needed. Number 3, competent parties, meaning if you enter into a contract, you have to be of legal age, you have to be mentally competent, and you can't be under the influence of drugs or alcohol, for example. And all contracts must have a legal purpose, meaning you're not doing anything that is against public policy. Consideration. An insurance company's consideration is their promise to pay a claim. The policy owner or the insured's consideration is their statements on the application and the premium payment that they make. Let's talk about some different aspects of a contract. First of all, they're aleatory, meaning unequal exchange. You could make one premium payment and have a full death benefit paid to your beneficiary if you would die the next day. And that death benefit is going to be much more than the one premium that you paid in. So they're unequal. They're personal. They're between the insurance company, the insurer, and the insured. The contracts adhere or follow the doctrine of adhesion, meaning you have to take it or leave it. You don't get to change the verbiage within a contract. It's written by the insurance company. They're unilateral. The term unilateral means one-sided. The insurance company is on the hook to pay the claim. That's something they cannot get out of. That's their promise. You, as the insured, could cancel the policy at any time. And they're conditional. Certain conditions need to be met. On life insurance, for example, one of the big conditions is you have to go through underwriting, maybe have a physical done and things like that. Warranties. They are an absolutely true, 100% true statement. Breaches of warranties can void a policy out completely. And then there's representations. Representations are the answers that insureds give on an application. They're considered to be the truth to the best of their knowledge at the time they write that information on the application.